Poconos are synonymous with summer vacation. However, as far as the racing world is considered NASCAR and IndyCar, here at Pocono Raceway. And just 4 left in this 2019 NTT IndyCar season. And this is an all-important one, the second to last oval. This weekend here in Pocono, next weekend in Gateway. Welcome, folks. Lee Diffie, Townsend Bell, Paul Tracy with you. It's practice, and a very important practice session because weather affected today's schedule. The initial practice session was delayed and then eventually cancelled. Qualifying was cancelled. And the grid will be formed tomorrow by points. And therefore, this is all about finding your optimum car setup in this 2-hour session, of which there is 1 hour, 21 minutes remaining. And the man who's off to a quick start in just his 4th race of the year is Carlin Racing's Charlie Kimball, who has the quickest lap speed at the moment of almost 214 miles per hour. Over Will Power, multiple-time winner here, and then the rookie Colton Herter, who has never raced here before. Speaking of rookies, there's Santino Ferrucci. He's in the same boat.
Doing a terrific job as Ferrucci sits 10th right now at a 2:11.6. His teammate Sebastian Bourdais is 4th. And this is what the rest of today looks like. Lucas Oil Motocross from Budds Creek, followed up by NASCAR America, and then it gets real with the Cup Series from Bristol. That's going to be fun, Paul. We might want to gather around the fireplace up here in Pocono to watch that action.
How about Mecum Auto Auctions from Monterey? It's a huge weekend in Monterey. Townsend, you were there. They've had a couple of really good sales already this week. A 1967 Ferrari 275 GTB4 sold for $2.75 million. I know you were out there hanging with the gang and Steve Matchett. What did you like what you saw out there?
Well, the content just gets better at Mecum every year. There was also a couple of gorgeous Menard IndyCars examples from 95 and 96. Some pole sitting car from Scott Brayton in 96. That Menard's V6. Those things are beautiful too. All kinds of good stuff in Monterey. It's Car Week.
So one of the talking points as we welcome in Kevin Lee so far in this 2-hour session is that a guy who missed the opening half an hour of it was Simon Pagenaud. What was the story, Kevin?
So Pagenaud is back on pit lane right now, but he has made an appearance on track this weekend. Just did an install and out lap a moment ago, but they missed the first 40 minutes of this first and looks like only practice session leading up to the race, because when the practice session started, they couldn't get it into gear, and it took about 35-40 minutes to get this sorted. All kinds of electronic concerns. They were looking at the ECU, the gearbox control unit. They swapped out steering wheels, and eventually, I think they have it sorted. Right before they did the install, Kyle Moyer kind of gave me a shrug of his shoulders that I think it's okay. And now they've done the install lap, and they're just checking on everything. But so far, so good. But some time missed for the reigning Indy 500 winner, Simon Pagenaud. To Dylan Welch.
And Kevin, one of the balances on these big racetracks is finding that balance between downforce and just overall handling with your race car. That's what Alexander Rossi's been working on here in these opening few minutes. They just sent him back out. He's basically just made install laps up to this point. So they came back in, added some more downforce. That's what he wanted. They made some wicker adjustments, both wings, along with adjusting the rear wing angle to accommodate those requests from Alexander. So it's time to go now. We'll see how good he really is. He sits 16th right now, but again, they've just made install laps. Now he jumps up to 3rd. So they're getting that race car dialed in, Robin.
All right, Dylan, it wasn't that long ago, about 5 years ago, that every time IndyCar went to an oval, Ed Carpenter was the guy to beat. Didn't matter if it was a short oval, a big oval, or the Indy 500. Ed Carpenter, who's coming into pits right now, was the guy to beat. He qualified 2nd this year in Indianapolis. His team was actually 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. He almost won the Indy 500 in 2017, but he really struggled at Texas, which was unusual because his last victory was in 2014 at Texas. He had a good run at Iowa, went from last to 6th before he crashed. So he's only got 2 races left this year, fellas. He's got today, and he's got next week in Gateway, next Saturday night. So he wants to make good on the fact that he was the guy to beat on the ovals. And so far, he's starting out good. I think he's 7th fast right now, Lee Diffie.
Well, nobody will be surprised if we see him up towards the front. And speaking at the front, there is the Tresiba Chevrolet of Charlie Kimball for Carlin Racing. And when he hasn't been in the car this year, he has been at the races with the team, offering his insight when needed, helping the drivers, whoever that may be, and has been a tremendous team player. And it's been a really unusual season because he's used to being a full-time competitor. So just doing a handful of events this year This is his 4th start. Tomorrow will be his 4th start of the year.
If he can turn this kind of pace into a good race tomorrow, he might be doing a lot more races, because Charlie Kimball really hit the track in top form today. The car looks to be working very well as Pagenaud finally on track to lay down his first few laps of practice.
Pagenaud's quick around here. We'll see how he runs here. This is really his first full lap at speed.
Okay, Simon, we got plenty of time here. We lost a little bit, but we got plenty of time here. Just work it up.
So we'll keep a close eye on this. Right now, registered his first lap time.
When you miss out on such a chunk of a session, guys, like that, you heard the calming voice of his race strategist, Kyle Moyer, there. This is kind of like missing a week of school, and then you got to come back and catch up. Do you have to tell yourself it's all right, like still got time?
Well, when you got a car like, when you got an Indy 500 winning car, you tend not to panic too much. But if you were, say, a guy and you were struggling and running around and, you know, having a hard time on the ovals, it would definitely mess with your head a little bit. But he knows he's going to have a good car. The Penske cars are fast here. And let's not forget, this guy just won the Indy 500 with this machine, so he knows he's going to have a good car.
And has just spent a good period of the past 2 weeks in his home nation of France with the Indianapolis 500 winning Borg Warner Trophy. Here is his teammate at Penske, Joseph Newgarden, points leader. Joseph has led the points every step of the way this year after every race except the Indy 500. He has a 16-point championship lead, but it could have been more if not for this 2 weeks ago at Mid-Ohio.
Closing laps of the race, and watch Newgarden here in that blue and white car, tries to make a podium move on Ryan Hunter-Reay. It goes all wrong for him. He gets stuck in the sand. Here it is again. Sees a little bit of an opening. That left front gets locked up into Hunter-Reay's car. Newgarden's off. Newgarden stalled. Newgarden at the back at the finish, and it had a massive championship implication as Alexander Rossi drew within 16 points. And there you can see Scott Dixon, who we thought probably out of the championship hunt this year, goes on to win at Mid-Ohio while Newgarden stumbles, and now Dixon can smell blood.
Yeah, it was a very ill-advised move, and he has profusely apologized to his team. We interviewed him this morning during the rain delay, and I believe he said, "I'm sorry about what he did," about 5 times.
And the guy who brings fear to all of those championship contenders is Scott Dixon. He is in with a shot of a 6th, yes, 6th championship. You're watching practice in the NTT IndyCar Series from Pocono Raceway. 4 races left on the season here tomorrow at Pocono, next week at Gateway, and that's the ovals done for the season. And then it's off to Portland in the Pacific Northwest, and the season finishes at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca on the beautiful Monterey Peninsula in California. So that's what the scope of the rest of the season looks like. James Hinchcliffe just rolling into his pit box, the mayor of Hinchtown, who's now Mr. Mayor. He got married over the past 2 weeks. He's on top of the speed chart at the moment with 214.3. Meanwhile, he's also in the discussion pot because Arrow Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports will be known next year as Arrow McLaren SP. Yes, Zach Brown and the McLaren group have merged with Sam Schmidt and Rick Peterson to form this new team. They're switching from Honda power to Chevy power. And James Hinchcliffe still has 1 year left on his contract with Sam and Rick. But does that mean that he's going to be a part of this McLaren, or this new McLaren, Arrow, and Schmidt-Peterson organization? What are your initial thoughts?
Well, nobody on either side has definitively come out and said absolutely James Hinchcliffe is going to be part of the team. Both sides are kind of flirting at the idea because there's a contract apparently that stipulates Hinchcliffe will be in the car next year, but Hinch has that Honda relationship, and with the team now going to Chevy, I think both parties are trying to figure out what the fit is. I would imagine that Hinchcliffe will be there. When you look at the drivers that are available, he's the best one. And he's got all the experience. He's delivered for the team some podiums. It hasn't been a great year, though, this year, Paul.
No.
He's been consistent, but not consistently strong everywhere. Whether that's the team or the driver, the combination, it's always hard to put your finger in one place.
Well, there's no absolute clear-cut option to replace him with other than, I would say, a Connor Daly. And Robin Miller says it's 1,000% sure he's going to be at Andretti next year. So if that option is off the table, then there really is nobody out there that can do a better job currently than James Hinchcliffe. And here's a guy here, his teammate, Marcus Ericsson, who's done a really good job on ovals so far this year. Had a great run at Indy, had a great run at Texas, and was fast at Iowa, and has impressed more on the ovals than he has on the road courses.
Hey, PT. Not Connor Daly. That would be Colton Herta that I said I guarantee 1,000% he's going to be with
That's what I said, Colton Herta.
Oh, good.
You said Connor Daly, but
I'm sorry.
You were thinking Colton Herta.
I was thinking Colton Herta. So.
Okay, but let me tell you something about Hinchcliffe. Honda wants to keep him. Honda let Sam Schmidt out of his contract, their last year contract. Yeah, it's going to cost him some money. So don't be too sure that he's not going to be on a Honda team next year. And it might be as Bobby Rahaal's third car.
Well, let me ask you both a question, Robin and Paul. If it was Formula One and you were a young driver, or even an established driver, and McLaren offered you an F1 opportunity, I think that's different than their IndyCar team. I think some drivers might look at it and say, well, it didn't go very well at Indianapolis. Do you feel like just because McLaren's come along that all of a sudden that's going to be the team where everybody desires to be there? Or do you think as drivers they say, I'm going to wait and take a look before I put all my eggs in that basket?
Well, the reality is this car barely made the field at Indy. McLaren did not make the field at Indy, but they've kind of turned it around so far here. They're running really well. So maybe they've figured that car out, what their problems were at Indianapolis. And now next year, with the partnership with McLaren and the technology and the wind tunnel and all the information that team could potentially bring to the table, maybe that's a highly desirable seat for anybody.
On a personal front, as we mentioned a little earlier, James and his longtime girlfriend, his childhood sweetheart, in fact, Becky Dalton, tied the knot. And there are a lot of friends and fellow racers from this IndyCar paddock who were there. And on behalf of all of us, we congratulate Hinch and Becky. And it's just the first in a string of marriages because Robert Wickens and his fiancée will be getting married, I believe, next month. Joseph Newgarden is getting married. It's kind of the wedding year as far as in the IndyCar paddock, that's for sure.
Hey, I want to let you guys kind of talk about the different aero options that teams have this year. There's a look at Simon Pagenaud, and you can sort of see the gurney flap, that black piece, the wicker on the rear wing. That's the biggest of the three options they have. They just put that on, and whenever you do that, especially going to the biggest gurney flap, you need to make some changes at the front. So this year there are more options for the teams to provide more downforce. It's also a slightly different tire. The right front is the one that's going to have the biggest impact, which will give a little bit better stability and better handling, especially at the front of the car. So what I was being told this morning is that I don't know if we'll see a lot of people go to that biggest gurney flap because that's going to present some drag. But obviously Pagenaud is one of those that's going to it right now.
I don't know. I think, Townsend, that like Indy, if you can't run up on a guy through the corner to get the run down the straightaway, if you're too far back in the corner because you can't get close because you're low on downforce, you'll never get by the guy.
True, but if you're too draggy, even if you can stay close, then when you pop out into clean air, even with the slipstream, then all of a sudden that drag meets the clean air and it's tough to get by, not to mention the fact that you're going to burn more fuel running that drag. We ride on board now with Rosenquist, who after Mid-Ohio leads the rookie points pretty strongly.
Ferrucci goes P1.
Yep, that was a while ago. He's been sitting here for quite some time, and he sits second in the Rookie of the Year standings. How close will it be after the next 4 races? And there is only one rookie who can boast a victory. That is the youngest man ever to do it, Colton Herta.
Our main target is the championship. Let's do this.
Here we go from Pocono.
I've got to be perfect on every day.
It's about finding that limit. I'm right on that edge.
If I do that, then we can win a championship.
Reigning series champion Scott Dixon on track here at Pocono. And Dixon at the moment runs down in 13th position, but still very early on. We're not quite halfway through this 2-hour solitary practice session in the lead up to tomorrow's 500-mile race. And as they say, you're only as good as your last race. Well, in Scott Dixon's case, that's pretty good. You remember Mid-Ohio 2 weeks ago? Let's have a look.
Just 5 races remain leading to the finale, and 4 are very much still in play for the championship, and they all start near the front today.
Here comes Scott Dixon. He's got the draft early this time. Does he have enough speed? Oh, over under.
The shake and bake.
To the inside, Dixon. This time will make it stick. Dixon picks up the position.
Dixon, he's gone now.
We're inside the final 10. It's Scott Dixon in control, but look at that gap decrease. Felix Rosenqvist inside 5 seconds now.
Rosenqvist, is he going to go for the win?
You got this, Felix. Remember, it's your teammate. Make it clean.
Dixon trying to defend from his rookie teammate. They come together in the keyhole. Nearly touch. He'll look around the inside. Now try to swing to the outside. The teammates are side by side. Final corner. Dixon wiggles to the line. Rosenqvist on his gearbox dives into the side, and Scott Dixon will win.
Closest ever finish in IndyCar history at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course for a Dixon Rosenqvist Hunter Ray podium to Chip Ganassi Racing 1-2. And speaking of Chip's drivers doing well, how about here at the Tricky Triangle? The team's first ever 1-2-3 sweep in IndyCar history, with Scott Dixon winning and then being flanked by Charlie Kimball and Dario Franchitti. Mike Hull was right here to witness that back in 2013. And 2 of those 3 drivers are on track right now. Dario, the retired Dario Franchitti, who is hanging out at the Pebble Beach Concord Elegance this weekend in Monterey. He's actually kicking around. He's hanging around with former F1 driver Mark Webber.
I saw that with Wayne Rainey, I believe. They were having dinner the other night. Wayne, who lives in the Monterey area. But for Dixon and Mike Hall, it just seems like it's mojo time once again for the umpteenth time. It's August. There's a championship on offer. They're in the hunt, and everything seems to click at the right time. It would not surprise me at all, Paul, if we come out of here tomorrow with Scott Dixon winning another race and getting even closer in the championship battle.
Well, he's had a great run the last couple races, but I don't think he's got the kind of speed that they've had in the past here. Indy has been a bit of a struggle for them. This track has been a struggle the last couple years. He's got to minimize the damage, I think, this weekend. I think a win here might be a bit of a long shot, a stretch, compared to Rossi or the Penske's.
And I said it before, guys, I don't care who you are, and you can work your way back through the years over the full tenure of Scott Dixon and his career here in IndyCar. Nobody instills fear into the other competitors vying for a championship like Scott Dixon does, because every single one of them, including the retired Dario Franchitti or Juan Pablo Montoya, whoever it might be, they just know how good Dixon is in the closing races of a championship.
And that was the point I was making this morning on NBC Sports Gold, is I think Newgarden, he probably thinks the most about allowing Dixon to get closer more than maybe even Rossi and Pagano. As we see Alexander Rossi out there in the blue and red colors this weekend.
Finally got a little bit of pack racing action. Now's the time when you can check your gearing, see if you've got enough gear ratio with a 4-car draft down the straightaway.
This guy was in a league of his own last year, Alexander Rossi. He led 180 of the 200 laps and just never looked phased. He was in a pretty good game of 200-plus mile-an-hour chess with Will Power and Scott Dixon and Marco Andretti and Joseph Newgarden. But on every single pit stop cycle, this 2017 just came out, took their time, and took the lead and took off.
So that's Hinchcliffe up in front of Rossi, and then Will Power in front of Hinch. And you can see it takes a lot of work here at Pocono to try to figure out how to get close. Oftentimes you're waiting for the driver in front, in this case Hinchcliffe, to maybe have a tiny bobble and have to check up a little bit and get a run. And it does not look easy for Rossi at all.
No.
And he's way back and feeling the turbulent air through turn 3.
Yeah, Hinch is able to run much closer to Will Power right there that's in front of him. And now we've got more cars coming out of the pits up on the higher line there. for Rossi. He had to go around the outside of Ed Carpenter that came out of the pits. Pocono right there just pulled out in front.
Liking what I'm seeing out of Hinchcliffe and his car so far this practice session. He's been quick on his own. He looks pretty racy in traffic. Here we look out the back of Hinchcliffe's car in that Lucas oil cam. Spencer Piggott making a move on Graham Rahal going into turn 1. And the last lap, I actually saw Hinch start to fade up a little early and get on that darker section where the NASCAR tire machine has kind of scrubbed in. I feel like he might be one of the guys that's figuring out early that there's some grip there high in turn 1 if you need it.
Pocono missing that opening half an hour plus of the session. The Indy 500 champ is sitting in 16th place at the moment. Still plenty of time, 55 minutes remain. Practice continues in the NTT IndyCar Series here from Pocono Raceway. Great to have you with us for the one and only practice session in the lead up to tomorrow's 500 miler. Lee Diffie, Townsend Bell, Paul Tracy with you. Robin Miller, Dylan Welsh, and Kevin Lee on what we're pleased to say is a sunny afternoon after pretty unpleasant weather earlier today that affected the initial practice session and qualifying. However, we now see another mandatory caution period because there is another track inspection due. This was all part of the process during this 2-hour practice session. As we say hello to Robin Miller.
Hey, Lee. Dale Coyne has had a lot of drivers during his career, and we haven't talked about you much in the silly season, but I understand Sebastian Bourdais signed up for another year. What about this rookie sensation, Santino Ferrucci? Will we see him with Dale Coyne next year?
I'm pretty sure we will, yeah. A couple of things to work out, but he's doing a great job. He's P1 right now, so you can't really ask for more than that.
Tell us the truth. What did you know about him when you signed him up? I mean, we knew about Colton Herta. We knew about Felix Rosenqvist. What did you know about him?
No, you line up all the resumes, right? And if I looked at the resumes, Rookie of the Year, I would have said Rosenqvist, Herta, maybe Erickson second. I had Santino last. And he's been a surprise. He's been toward the top. He's smoking on the ovals. He's just, if he had oval points only, he'd be 4th in the championship.
Is that right? He just seems to have a great spirit, too. It looks like this is like his new lease on life. He just turned 21 years old, and he's got a chance over here with a clean slate.
Yeah, no, he's doing good. I mean, he's carrying himself well. He represents his sponsors well and well-spoken and very mature for 21.
All right, a Dale Coyne, diamond in the rough. Mr. Dillon?
Robin, we've got Derek Davidson here who calls the strategy for Takuma Sato. So down further on the timing charts than I know you would like. Are you making any progress on getting the balance where you want it?
Yeah, we're making progress. It's just he's just not happy with the car right now, so we're picking away at it. Hopefully by the end of the session we'll be where we need to be.
What does he want more of the car to do?
Well, we started out with a pretty loose situation, so he needed more rear security, and we're starting to get that. So now we built a little understeer into it, so now we're just trying to come back a little bit, trying to meet it in the middle.
All right, and they just bolted some new tires on it as well, so we'll see what those 4 fresh Firestones will do for Takuma Sato. Kevin?
One of the rookies, Felix Rosenqvist, has a 3-time Indianapolis 500 winner and 4-time champ in his corner, and Dario Franchitti. So how's he doing so far? What can you do to help someone that's never been on this race course before?
I think it's all about the planning, isn't it? It's all about talking to him a little bit before he actually goes on the simulator, which he did earlier in the week. And then going from the virtual world to the real world is quite a shock around here. And I think just the size of the place, didn't catch him out, but he was shocked by it. And he just, feeling it out. The 3 different corners have very different car balances in them, so just getting used to all that, and we're just trying to make the car better for him too.
I want to go back to last week. What was being said? What were you telling Barry Wanzer to say? And I say last week, I mean the last race 3 weeks ago when Felix was challenging, and there was a little bit of chrome horn involved there, trying to find your way through with the 2 teammates battling for the lead.
Yeah, Barry and I were having a discussion, and Barry called all my races at when I drove for Chip, and so we were having a discussion about it. I said, remind him it's his teammate. He reminded him, and I asked him to remind him again about halfway through the lap, and he informed me that, yeah, I have reminded him. I said, no, do it again. But I wasn't quite as calm as I am now, and I wasn't using quite as polite of words, but Barry knows what he's doing, man. He's an expert, but it got a little close in turn 2, but a fantastic result for the team with that 1-2 finish.
Maybe that's why you don't talk to the drivers during the race in the car. You talk to them when they're parked. All right, I want to talk about you racing again. I saw this release a little while ago. You're going to be doing some quasi-competitive racing again in a vintage car coming up at the Goodwood Revival.
Yeah, I'm going to drive some old cars again. I did it sort of mid-2000s. I had a lot of fun doing it. So I talked to the insurance company, talked to the doctors, and said, "Listen, can I just do some stuff?" And they sort of hummed and hawed. They said, "Yeah, you can, but there'll be no IndyCar return, but something to do, some fun racing." I'm very excited about it. Driving two beautiful cars at Goodwood, driving a 250 short wheelbase Ferrari, and then an AC Cobra as well in the Tourist Trophy. So yeah, just looking forward to getting behind the wheel again.
I can't wait to see video and social media of that. Thanks, Dario.
Thank you.
Dario Franchitti up on the 10 box with Felix Rosenquist, 6 so far, and it's another rookie, Santino Ferrucci, fastest in practice here at Pocono.
Quick reminder that you can get even more IndyCar with the NBC Sports Gold IndyCar Pass. Watch every qualifying and practice session live and on demand. And if you don't have it yet, you can by visiting NBCsports.com/IndyCar right now, as many of you have. And as many of you will have started this session off prior to 2 o'clock watching on NBC Sports Gold. Welcome back to Pocono Raceway. The mandatory caution and track inspection is over. And cars back on track, all trying to chase Santino Ferrucci's 215.3 miles per hour as we go to Andretti Autosport's Zach Veach in the Gainbridge Honda. Zach was really good here last year. He loves this place. He was running in the top 5 consistently for a long while, top 10, had a really good run, and he could do with having a good run, Paul, here this weekend.
Absolutely. It's been a tough year so far. He's had some good performance as of late. Started off the year real rocky, making some mistakes, just over-driving, trying too hard, just wanting the performance to be at a higher level than it was the previous year, and just found himself making mistakes more often than not, but he's settled down the last few races.
Veach 17th in points right now. The only other full-time runner behind him, Tony Kanaan and Matthias Leist. As we see Matthias Leist having a
looking good so far.
Pretty good day. Yeah, 214.2.
An hour and 15 minutes into practice, still up there in terms of speed. Andretti looking good so far right now, P4. Ericsson doing another phenomenal job on the ovals, currently P5. Schmidt-Peterson cars looking real racy this weekend. And this guy right here, Santino Ferrucci, still on top at P1 by a full mile an hour as he's going to pass James Hinchcliffe right here down the back straightaway and into the tricky tunnel turn.
Now this is the part of practice where you don't really know where everybody is on tire mileage.
Right.
You know, Ferrucci could have gone out on a new set, and you're going to absolutely chew up the competition as Tony Kanaan goes to P1 right now.
And TK knows that this weekend and next weekend are 2 huge opportunities to give the ABC Supply Chevrolets of AJ Foyt Racing their best results of the year. So at the moment, you've got TK in first, Matthias Leist in 6th. But yes, I hear what you're saying at home. It's only practice, but it's important for them to be able to hit those speeds and see what kind of consistency they can carry. Leist here on screen, the young Brazilian for AJ Foyt Racing, Kanaan's teammate, ran in the top 10 for a really good portion of the race last year. He said despite that, it was a really difficult race. He didn't have an enjoyable time per se. We'll see what this year can yield for him. And then the question begs, will Leist be on AJ Foyt Racing next year as Zach Veach dives to pit lane?
Ferrucci backing off, going to get at the tail of this line. He passed to get in the lead of this group. Now he's going to try to file in right here in this gap.
Real smart, because you know if you're Ferrucci, you're going to start 10th. Where is he in championship points? Ferrucci's 13th, so you're going to start deep in the back of mid-pack. So you're going to be in traffic no matter what. But for more on Tony Kanaan, who sits P1, let's head down to Robin Miller.
Well, think about this, T-Bell. TK knows he's pretty much at the end of his career, but he said the other day, he said, you know, I'd like to have 1 year, just 1 year, my going away year. I'd just like to have a farewell season. because the fans have been so good. He's probably still the most popular driver in the series. And the question is, does he want to go back to A.J. Foyt's team, and does A.J. want him back? I mean, that's a tough decision right now because, he'd like to go out a lot better than they're running this year, and I'm not sure what's going to happen. But I think, racing doesn't owe anybody anything, but Kanaan has done such a good job with the fans for all these years and stuff. It would be nice to see him get a nice farewell season where he has a good competitive ride, especially at the Indianapolis 500.
Townsend and I want the same thing, Robin. Can you go to work on that for us as our manager? Our farewell tour?
Hey, I got you a job at NBC. Well, no, not really, but I put in a good word for you.
Tomorrow will be Tony's 314th consecutive start. Just an incredible run.
Looking good so far.
By the way, he's also led a lot of laps around Pocono, so if he can get to the front, there's no reason to think that he can't stay there, especially a car that right now, if you take no-tow reports, Tony Kanaan would be P2.
Rossi just jumped up to P3 on that last lap at a 2:15.373, which is just a whisker behind Ferrucci. As we go on board now with Graham Rahal.
Yeah, check this out, Paul. Been watching this on the straightaways. We talk a lot about steering offset and driver preference. As Graham Rahal comes to the front straightaway, look at how his steering wheel's basically square, like a road course. If we go to another driver in the field,
Rosenquist, he's way
look at the offset
over,
that Rosenquist have. Both cars are going absolutely straight. But that's really just a driver preference thing, and it all depends on what sort of steering angle you want. Where do you want your right hand to be when you get into the corners? But that's a pretty dramatic difference. I've never seen somebody run as straight as Graham does here.
A lot of guys don't like having their hand cranked way over in the air because you can get hit by stuff, that debris that comes off the track. So one of the reasons why you run that wheel cranked over like that is because your hand doesn't end up out in the air when you're going through the corner.
By the way, as we ride with Graham Rahal, his teammate at Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing, Takuma Sato, whatever changes the team made has worked, as Taku has jumped from 22nd and last to 12th.
Watch the hands here as he goes through the corner. Watch how exposed your knuckles are to the air that's out there. So if a piece of debris was to come, look, his hands are kind of out there in the air.
And I've had a little pebble or even a bug. I know it sounds crazy. At 220 miles an hour, a bug hitting your knuckle will bruise your hand.
Yeah. Now this guy was involved in not even a lap one. It was coming to green accident with Spencer Piggott last year, and then he made some changes and repairs to the car when he was not supposed to. He was handed a pretty severe penalty, was playing catch-up. He was multiple laps down last year, but interestingly enough, ran at the same pace as the eventual race winner, Alexander Rossi, for a good portion of the race. And the team come here this year with that knowledge that it could be good, but at the moment it is not that way for Graham Rahal. He's down in 21st position with 38 minutes left in this one and only practice session at Pocono Raceway. Tony Kanaan in the ABC Supply Chevrolet. The veteran is the quickest at the moment.
It's nighttime, baby. It is the night race.
It's Bristol, baby.
Short tempers, high action.
Feet back, not the finish.
That's what you got to do.
As practice continues here at Pocono, we look forward to NTT IndyCar Series racing from the Tricky Triangle, presented by Honda tomorrow. And pre-race coverage begins at 2 Eastern, racing at 2:30. Meanwhile, the menu for today: Lucas Oil Pro Motocross. Eli Tomac continues to lead the 450 class. NASCAR America at 6. Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series racing from Bristol tonight. Denny Hamlin on the pole. Did you see the Xfinity Series race last night? That was pretty wild. And then Meekum continues from Monterey. We've got a little bit of everything for you here on your home of motorsport on an exciting weekend.
Some multi-million-dollar stuff going on the blocks at Meekum today and tomorrow. Probably could go down and make an offer on one of these things, Paul. This is in the paddock right here. Look at that look at the wing on that Mustang.
There was some pretty hot cars earlier there before practice. They had a car show down there and had some nice old vintage cars. And we're looking at Hunter Ray, who's out there doing a long run currently in, where is he? Eighth.
He's a winner here. Knows how to get to victory lane at this place, and he comes from a podium, a much-needed podium at Mid-Ohio 2 weeks ago. So the 28 DHL team at Andretti Autosport are trying to build on that. Now, running at the speeds they do here, you can imagine what pit entry's like. And you remember this happening back in 2013. Ryan Hunter-Ray couldn't believe it when he just got slammed by Takuma Sato on pit entry.
And that's why they call him the Wild Thing, Townsend. You dubbed him that name. And look at this guy coming in nice and hot, gets it low down to the pit speed. And
that's earlier today.
That's how it's done right there.
Colton Herta right at the limit. That's the textbook example of threshold braking. Good 50-50 balance front to rear on grip.
And talk about making good strides and good work. The 22 of Simon Pagenaud, after missing the first 35 minutes of the session, as Kevin detailed earlier, the Indy 500 champion is already up to the 7th quickest time at a 214.4 miles per hour.
Well, and he's the fastest of the Penske runners on that higher downforce setting. So higher downforce, being able to run up closer on these cars in the draft is netting a better lap time right now than his teammates that are running on lower downforce.
It's something we don't often hear. We're able to say the fastest Chevrolet is not one of the Penskes. It's actually Tony Kanaan from the ABC Supply AJ Foyt racing team.
What's going on though with Power and Newgarden? I wonder if down on pit lane we've heard anything on the radio, or maybe they just haven't gone to new tires yet, Kevin, because right now Joe New not really threatening front line speed.
I think you may have hit on it. In fact, just a few minutes ago, I heard Tim Cindric tell Will Power they're on new tires, and he just pitted a moment ago and just went back out, and he didn't change tires. And that's the advantage that Team Penske and the other bigger teams like Andretti have, is that everyone is doing something different. So you talked about the higher downforce wicker that we saw Pagenaud with earlier, and then I walked down and I saw each of the three Penskes with all three of the different size wickers. So I wouldn't be all that super concerned with what Will Power and Joseph Newgarden are doing right now. They'll decide who has the best setup, and they'll circle back to that as we move forward here in the next little bit, and maybe, if not, until tomorrow. But I think they'll feel like they have a pretty good plan. Remember, Power, who wanted to qualify because he won pole last year, so instead he qualifies and starts 5th on points in this race. He finished 2nd last year and won the 2 previous years. And so he feels pretty comfy here.
Well, Rossi right here is not running a lot of downforce. If you look here, he's got a short wicker here, Townsend. The Penske cars are running a full wicker all the way across the back, and Pagenaud has more downforce than both of the other Penske cars. So this car, you could see how fast he just pulled away from Newgarden. He came out of the pits and has just kind of rocketed away from him.
Thought it was pretty interesting there. This was kind of an indication of what the start of the race might be like, with Rossi, Newgarden, and Pagenaud all running together. It looked to me like Rossi threw a little bit of shade there in between turns 2 and 3 using the Will Power move. Let's go back on board. Watch this right here.
Yeah, Newgarden shows low. Had a little bit of a look at him, but that car's got some speed in it right now. It's obviously running lower downforce, and it's getting grip through the corner as well. Be interesting to see what kind of lap times Rossi runs, because he's got a little bit of a toe from his teammate right there, Beach, that's in front of him.
And he's feeling pretty confident at the moment, and why wouldn't he be? 16 points out of the lead of the championship, Alexander Rossi.
Work my way back.
He's going to work his way back into the traffic now. Not enough cars in front of him. He wants to feel what that downforce level is going to be like, because he just pulled away from those Penske cars pretty easily.
And with last year in mind, he says he has all of his, any of his bad tracks are out of the way. He knows he comes here as the defending race winner. He goes to Gateway next week. He runs well there, ran well at Portland last year, and then grew up racing basically in the junior categories at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca.
I might have missed the memo. What's a bad track for Alexander Rossi these days? There you see Hunter Ray letting Will Power by. He's going to do the same thing as his teammate Rossi. Drop back, get yourself in dirty air, and figure out if this is the setup you want to bank on for race time tomorrow.
Mateus Laced right there behind Hunter Ray. Still in the top 10. 10th quick.
This is the Will Power move we've been talking about all day. These were the closing laps of the race in 2016. And Power, sorry, this was him winning in 2016, but the next year he had his teammate Newgarden all over him, and he went way low below the yellow line to take away the move from Newgarden, or at least the attempt or the option of a move from Newgarden. We thought that was so clever. We'd never seen that before. And I think we'll see drivers emulate that tomorrow, because it really takes away that passing opportunity going into turn 3.
Got back-to-back wins with those two, and then he is winless this year. He is trying to add another one to that graphic, making it 13 seasons with at least one win. Scott Dixon with the incredible run of 15 seasons with at least one victory. That's why the Iceman is a 5-time series champion. Back in a moment. Practice continues. This is a refreshing feeling for Tony Kanaan. Yes, it's just practice. There's just under 26 minutes remaining. But what a change. What a breath of fresh air for Tony being on the top of the speed charts. 216.3 miles per hour. However, because of championship points, TK will find himself starting down in 19th place. No qualifying today, just due to rain earlier today that changed the whole on-track schedule. And it was initially meant to be a 1-hour practice session, followed by qualifying, followed by another 1-hour practice session later this afternoon. Qualifying got scrapped. Nothing happened in that initial practice session, and the 2-hour periods were combined for this, and we've got just 25 minutes remaining. But Robin Miller, this is great. For as long as we've all enjoyed watching Tony Kanaan race and succeed, we don't like to see him struggle, nor the team, but this is somewhat refreshing to see him on top.
As TK comes in, Lee, remember this. Here's the biggest surprise in racing. A.J. Foyt is now texting people. I texted him a little while ago, and I said, hey, fat boy, you ought to be here at Pocono. Your car's #1. Now, I haven't got a response from him yet, but I was just talking to Larry Foyt, and he said Don Halliday, the old veteran, has really got the confidence up with Mateus Laced, and he's got the confidence up between the two teams working much better together than they have all year. So maybe this is the turnaround that we've been looking for and hoping for TK and for Mateus.
By the way, Robin Miller is perhaps the only person on earth who could call A.J. Foyt what he did via text. They're good friends. They have quite the interesting friendship. What do we see here? Will Power, Simon Pagenaud, Santino Ferrucci, Colton Herta, Marcus Ericsson.
Ferrucci. Wow. Ferrucci with the bold move to the inside.
Ferrucci
going to take all of them in one bite.
The move maker. That guy's got all kinds of moves.
Well, look down on the right-hand side on the inside there, Paul. That's the Arrow Schmidt-Peterson machine of Marcus Ericsson. Remember the Indy 500? He had a great run going and unfortunately just made a mistake on pit lane entry, spun the car, crashed into the pit wall. His day was done. But I think Ericsson could go good here tomorrow. He could go well.
Yeah, this track is not like your typical big oval, high banked like Texas, but he also ran really well at Texas. So he's been a surprise to me, because if going into the season, I would have said, man, this guy's going to have an eye-opener Townsend when he gets to the ovals, but he's really excelled at them.
Well, let's not forget the job Colton Herta's doing today as he sits there currently 4th on the charts, looking very racy behind Joseph Newgarden there. And Colton Herta, who really never even had a chance to do much at Indianapolis this year with the mechanical failure, but he has no experience at Pocono, and I love how aggressive he's looked early on, not only finding his limit in pit lane, but also his pace here in practice. And I think more importantly than pace is what do you look like in traffic? And right now, Colton looks very comfortable mixing it up 3 or 4 car lengths back. I think for Tony Kanaan, they need to get him now in deep traffic. That's where he's going to live at least through the first half of the race based on his starting position. So he's got a fast car, but what does it do when you're close to a car in front.
Yeah, right now, Power and Newgarden right here at the front of this field are currently 17th and 18th, so not a lot of speed there. With Pagenaud, he missed the first 40 minutes of the practice session. Pagenaud's on a higher downforce setting. He's up in 7th right now. So as we watch these two teammates work with each other.
And that's a lot of times, Paul, where you're going to see a pass happening. Hinchcliffe getting by Ericsson, who had to lift a little bit, exited turn 2. Hinchcliffe had a run coming, and that's a lot of times where the passes happen, is a little bobble, a little adjustment from the car in front, losing momentum.
Keep working your tools.
Behind
Got about 21
Ericsson
minutes
now,
to go.
the orange and blue of Scott Dixon coming into the fold.
Marco Andretti just exiting pit lane and getting up to speed. What an interesting blend within that top 10. Tony Kanaan, Santino Ferrucci, Alexander Rossi.
Way up the track there for Hinchtown, working that high groove on that rubber that's been laid down for the NASCAR. They put an activator down and drag tires across it to put rubber down. Hinch is really the first guy flirting with that higher line.
So let's watch Dixon on the hunt here. He clears Ericsson, no problem. Now going to go to work on Hinchcliffe. 21 minutes left in practice. We don't know how many laps are on anybody's tires at this point.
You can see now that the groove is now starting to match that upper groove. You can see the rubber's getting laid down. When we got here, that was almost like a light gray color. As we come down the back straightaway here and through the kink, but watch this, Hinch way up top there.
Well, not so much way up top as much as Marco Andretti coming out of the pits and staying low and trying to stay out of the way. Smart move from Marco Andretti to not go up the groove at the exit. It's really Ericsson that was staying low. I think Ericsson thought he was going to maybe follow Marco, and that's what allowed Dixon to get a run down the back straightaway. Now Dixon's close to Hinchcliffe. This will be interesting. Can Dixon do anything in traffic at this point?
You've really got to back the corner up and beat the guy in front of you back to the throttle to get a run off the corners.
He's got a pretty good run here. And a lot of times you can make a run, stick through turn 2 because it's a short corner radius-wise, and then try to dive into the entry at turn 3, but it won't happen on this lap for Scott Dixon.
You can see the groove down is rubbering in down on the bottom there. The bottom of the track is almost the same color as the top now in turn 3.
Everybody packing up behind Takuma Sato there on the front straightaway. Look at how low Takuma sits in the car.
Sato 14th, Ray Hall still down in 21st, so the Ray Hall Lanigan car's a little bit of struggle so far today.
Good run from Dixon there. He might have a chance now heading down to turn 2. He stayed really close off of turn 1. Not quite. Can he hang in there and maybe dive inside?
And when will we see something from Will Power and championship leader Joseph Newgarden? 19 minutes remaining. Championship points leader is logging some good laps in this pack at the moment. Will we see him and Will Power throw in a quick one before the end? In recent IndyCar history, there have been 6 races, and you go back to 2013, it was a Chip Ganassi Racing 1, 2, 3 with Scott Dixon coming out on top. The next year it was Penske's turn to win, with JPM won Pablo Montoya, and then Ryan Hunter-Reay for Michael Andretti. Yes, the big 3, Penske, Ganassi and Andretti, have dominated these 6 years, and then Will Power, the first of 2 wins back-to-back, 2016 and 17, and Alexander Rossi dominated last year to get his first win at Pocono Raceway. Here is the 2-time winner, Will Power, we were just talking about. And as we joined Kevin Lee, Kev, we were speculating going to the break, when will we see fresh tyres on the 12 to see what true speed we can really get out of it?
Ask and you shall receive. They just went over literally 15 seconds ago, just made an air pressure adjustment about a minute ago. Now keep in mind, this is different than a normal practice session. Everyone wants to put a set of stickers on at some point to get a qualifying sim. but that's not necessary. So you do want to see what the car is going to do on a new set of stickers, but for race pace, a lot of times we see the most laps run today, and it's Power, Hinchcliffe, Rosenquist getting it done so far. It's more imperative that you make sure that you have pace and find out how the tires last over a full stint. So we also haven't seen Joseph Newgarden come down and put on new Firestones here recently. Pagenaud did probably about 15 or 20 minutes ago. He was dealing with a vibration, so that may be one of the reasons they went to it a little bit early. Still time, though, for Newgarden to come in. So Power, not only fresh Firestones, they've also made some adjustments on the car.
Well, pole speed last year, guys, was in the 219 range, and that's lighter downforce, new tires. So we might see guys now just flirt with that number in race conditions, which would be pretty good.
Here's the two guys who will share a car at the Bathurst 1000 in October. Alexander Rossi and James Hinchcliffe will drive in that Walkinshaw Andretti United car, and they're both super excited about that. That's some of the news over the past 2 weeks.
Rossi's so excited. When we had lunch at Andretti today, I went over to talk to him, and he was actually looking at videos, in-car videos from Bathurst of his teammates over there. So he's already jazzed up about a race that's literally a few months away.
And a very good friend of both of the drivers ahead is this man here, Connor Daly, back in the Gallagher Carlin Chevrolet. And Connor at the moment, where does he run? He runs in 12th. Doing another solid job. Nice work. He was here last year in the Harding Steinbrenner car and was running very well until kind of three-quarter stage through the race and had a little brush with the wall, and that was enough to put an end to his day.
Little fuel going in, some new tires. Not looking particularly strong today, Townsend. Still down in 19th position.
It's just tough because I think they've run Newgarden in traffic quite a bit. And, you know, with fresh rubber, you get out there, if everybody's running, if it's happy hour and everybody's out in the pack, you might put up a big number. It means absolutely nothing relative to winning this race. But I do believe that the driver that will start inside of the front row tomorrow, they need to get a feel for what happens on new tires and clean air and what that pace is, and potentially what the fuel burn is even more important. Do you want to lead? We saw that last year. Do you want to slot in and get the mileage? That all is going to play out in the strategy tomorrow.
Well, the question mark also for tomorrow is going to be what kind of fuel mileage can Chevy make, because we know, just based on the history of this year so far, that Chevy has not been able to go as far as Honda. Will that be a factor tomorrow? Chevy, we feel, is making a little bit more power than Honda, but Honda has an advantage on fuel mileage. So how will that all play out tomorrow, and how does that affect tire wear? Do you pit early? Do fresh tires make a big difference in speed? Or do you stay out there and keep circulating and extend your lead?
2 years ago when Power won, I remember it was short pitting him on one of the stints and getting him out on fresh tires that really helped him make up a huge gap and take the win.
And Dixon did the same last year to help get back after he was affected early on.
Usually the gamble is, you know, you stay out as long as possible hoping a yellow comes, because pitting under green, you can lose a tremendous amount of track position. But also, we haven't seen a tremendous amount of yellows through the years here. It's a lot of green flag running because it's a super speedway with only 22 cars on track. So it's not like the Indy 500 in terms of propensity for yellow flags.
The track density numbers aren't that high. And you know what? You know, typically when you run out front, you pay the price, but it didn't seem to affect Alexander Rossi last year. He was able to lead, still put up some great numbers. Yes, drivers went one lap longer than him and tried to get that advantage, but it didn't play out in the end. He was so dominant. Final 10 minutes of practice coming up.
Marco Andretti right there, followed by Sato. Both him and Ferrucci's car look very similar. There's Ferrucci right there in front. Got the red end plates on the front wing. They look very similar to each other.
Going to duck away just for a moment as we wait for Will Power and championship leader Joseph Newgarden to hit the track with fresh tyres. Back in a moment.
Our main target is the championship. Let's do this.
Here we go from Pocono.
I've got to be perfect on every day.
It's about finding that limit. I'm right on that edge.
If I do that, then we can win a championship.
Seven minutes remaining in practice as the NTT IndyCar Series continues here at Pocono Raceway. A rain-affected day and forced a cancellation of qualifying and a combination of both practice sessions being put into one for 1 2-hour block that is almost complete. There's been a lot of good running out there, a lot of laps turned, which need to be because there's 200 miles of racing ahead of all 22 competitors tomorrow in the 500-mile race, seeking victory. And one driver who has done that, not in IndyCar, but in NASCAR competition, Dale Earnhardt Jr., and it has been national news lead story for the last couple of days. And you know, for all of Dale Jr.'s fans, I mean, and for us, he's part of the NBC Sports family now. We are all thinking about him and that lucky escape from the plane crash for Amy, his wife, Isla, his daughter, the two pilots. They crashed in Tennessee. Just incredible footage now that has been released, and just so fortunate that nobody was seriously injured and a truly lucky escape. And Junior, if you happen to be watching, we're thinking about you, mate, and rest up. Take it easy and enjoy your family.
Guys are definitely getting more racy right now. Cars are running closer together. The track's rubbering in. We'll see right now in the next few minutes here, Connor Daly pops out on his teammate there. Tough to go through there two abreast. But in the final 5 minutes, we've got some guys now that are coming out on new tires. We'll see what kind of times they can lay down.
And you know what? Of course, we would all love to see a qualifying session. But guys, in a way, it has set up a pretty great start for tomorrow, where you've got the top two in the championship starting on the front row.
I've been watching Newgarden's last few laps, and he's been circling. I mean, this last lap at 157, 165. I thought he was looking for traffic initially, but now I'm not quite sure what's going on out there with the two car. He's right in front of Scott Dixon right now. Up front, though, the big pack has formed, and Hunter Ray and Rossi looking pretty good in traffic right now. They run together.
The best Penske car in this session is Simon Pagenaud in fourth, and he just laid down that lap. He went from 12th to 4th right there with a 215.3 mile-an-hour lap. Good session from Sebastian Bourdais. He's sitting in 6th at the moment, ahead of Scott Dixon.
Yeah, Pagenaud's out in the front of this group. He just passed Sato, was drafting him, so he did that lap all alone by himself without this big line of cars in front of him, so no draft help there in a 215.
And the story of the session, Tony Kanaan the quickest.
There's Newgarden right there, right behind Dixon.
Newgarden's in 21st right now, Paul. I know it's just practice. I know it's running in traffic, but man, I would have expected some little pop of speed from the championship points leader at some point over the last 2 hours, and he doesn't appear to be able to stay anywhere close to Scott Dixon.
Veach got a nice run right there with Ericsson coming in, kind of held up Newgarden. Veach has got a nice draft going here. Is he close enough to make it, or it'll be late?
All I can think is they're running them on really shagged, as we say, old tires to see what the pace is like at the end of the stint as Zach Veach now draws closer to Newgarden.
Looking as though right now that Tony Kanaan is going to hang on to the fast time, and now Pagenaud backs off and lets both of these cars go by. Ferrucci on the inside with another clean pass, and this guy has passed more cars than anybody this season.
Good work. While we see Takuma Sato, they're about to be overtaken by Simon Pagenaud. His Team RLL teammate, Graham Rahal, spent the majority of the session towards the back end of this 22-car field, but now Graham is up inside the top 10. So good work from his engineers as we ride on board the Total Honda.
Coming down on 2 minutes to go. Just about 2 laps.
Marcus Ericsson, third car in shot there, has just been handed a drive-through for pit speed violation. I think that's what he served earlier when we saw him diving to the lane.
Yeah, he's back out now. He's just behind these 2 cars, so it looked like he did a drive-through and came right out back behind them.
So there goes Pagenaud past Sato, but with 1:40 left to go, Newgarden jumps up to 17th now, Power in 20th.
Power's coming to the line here. Do we see any kind of improvement from the 12? No, stays buried in 20th position. 2 rookies in the top 5 in this 2-hour session. Santino Ferrucci second, Colton Herter. For both of those drivers, it's their first time here at the Tricky Triangle. Ferrucci told me that he's been here several times. He was here to watch this race last year, and he's been to several NASCAR races because his home in Woodbury, Connecticut is only about 2 hours away. As he comes down to pit lane, that'll be the end of the session for him with less than a minute to go. First time here in an IndyCar, and enjoying it, doing a great job.
How about that stat Dale Coyne threw out about 30 minutes ago, that if you eliminated road and street circuits, Ferrucci would be 4th in the Oval Championship. Wasn't that long ago there was a separate points tally and a trophy awarded for the Oval Championship, and that's just remarkable when you think about the lack of oval experience again for Ferrucci, the finishing rate, and now the pace. P3 for a long time.
Dixon just jumped up, knocked Ferrucci down to P3, so pretty impressive end to the session for Dixon.
There'll be some head scratching going on at Ed Carpenter Racing. Spencer Piggott 21st, his teammate and boss Ed Carpenter 22nd and last. What's happening at ECR?
Bigger question is what's happening at Team Penske with Pagenaud up front. Mechanical problems to start the session. Missed 40 minutes of practice, but his teammates really struggling in this session.
So there you have it. Checkered flag out. 2 hours done. And the veteran, Tony Kanaan, the quickest. Well, he knows that this weekend and next are his best, just based on the team's oval performances. Best chance of getting a great result. Let's hope practice converts to a good race result for Tony.
Welcome back to Pocono, where we just finished 2 hours of practice for the ABC 500. And look at that, on the top of the pit board, Tony Kanaan, car number 14, number 1. When the hell is the last time we saw that, son?
If I remember right, it was Indy last year. So I did that to try to convince AJ to come over. He's at home right now. So I'll get him pumped and he'll...
I just called him a fat man on TV and said, get in your jet and get here tomorrow. Your cars are competitive again. What's the deal? Is Don Halliday helped? Why are you guys quicker?
I felt we had a pretty good super speedway car all year long. I mean, our best result this year was Indy. We got caught and, we ran out of fuel and we went a lap down, got a lap back, we finished in the top 10. So I felt like we're pretty competitive. But Don definitely helped put our heads together. When you struggle like we are, it's really easy for everybody to lose confidence and to lose motivation. I'm including myself on that. So it's a big boost for the team. Shame we couldn't qualify because we're still starting by points and we're like 19th in points. So we have a lot of work to do. But, one day at a time. I take it.
The reason people watch these shows is to watch you pass people and have restarts and stuff. So if you're going to start 19th, that's good for us.
Oh, yeah. Don't worry about it. I'll be there, guys. I got to, at this point, it's still unbelievable to me that I still got to prove a couple people wrong, but we'll do it again and again.
Can you run close to people? Is your car pretty good?
We all can. It's just going to have to be a lot of patience and then trying to take the opportunity when it comes, because I don't think you're going to see anybody dominating this race as far as going to the back and trying to pass 5-6 cars. It's a tough track. There's 3 different types of corners that you have to lift, but I was happy with my car in traffic, so that's all we can do. We tried to pull a TK start on it, gain 5 or 6 positions right there, put ourselves in the top 10, and it's a 500-mile race. A lot can happen.
All right, have some fun tomorrow. Dylan Welsh.
Well, Santino Ferrucci, the hometown racer here today, ends up 3rd on the timing sheet, so not bad for your first time. Said you like this place. I don't blame you.
Yeah, no, first time pounding around here. Nice, lovely 2-hour session. Fortunately, no qualifying, but our race car feels on rails, man. I mean, I was glued all day. I had so much confidence in it, and, it's awesome to come out of the car and see all my friends here and a lot of my family to come and support me this weekend. I can't thank them enough for coming out, even most of Clyde Manufacturing, and, we're going to have a blast. I'm really looking forward to Sunday. I think we can have a great race.
Yeah, a nice group of about 20 or 30 people just down here in the pit stall cheering on Santino for tomorrow.
And Dylan, he told me yesterday that there's going to be about 150 Ferrucci supporters here tomorrow. So this is how they will line up again. It's based on championship points because of no qualifying earlier today due to weather. So we can't ask for any more with the top 2 in the championship starting from the front row, and one of those drivers in Alexander Rossi is the reigning champion. Can he defend that win tomorrow? We'll see. If he does, boy, is it going to make the championship interesting. Hey, coming up next, it's Lucas Oil Pro Motocross from Budds Creek National in Maryland. And we remind you to join us tomorrow at 2 o'clock Eastern for pre-race coverage. Race will start at 2:30 right here on NBCSN for the NTT IndyCar Series racing from Pocono, presented by Honda. So somewhat of a different day with the schedule being jumbled and mixed up. It threw the teams a little bit, but everybody reset and got going again. We'll see you tomorrow for the final 500-miler of the year.
Dylan Ferrandis